Hey folks, for those who are just joining us, my name is Tristan. I'm going to be running the Cityspan database workshop today. For those of you who haven't yet, please go ahead and put in your name and your organization into the chat, and we're going to get started in a couple minutes. Okay, folks, we're going to go ahead and get started here. Again, my name is Tristan Kirkman. I'm the data analyst for the Office of Out of School Time. This will be the Cityspan database workshop for today and yesterday. If you were here yesterday, you don't need to be here today. It's going to be just about the exact same thing. So first off, I'm going to just check to see if you guys can see and hear me. I'm going to put out a poll. And if you haven't yet, please put your name and organization into the chat. Wait 30 or so seconds for everybody to get online and get this started, and then we'll move on ahead. All right, closing our poll. Okay, seems like most of you can see me and hear me. Well, glad to hear that. Again, I'm Tristan. I'm the new data analyst for OST. This will be my second time doing this, so please work with me on this as we all try and get through this. So first off, our agenda for today. We're going to go over what your commitments are as a grantee, how we're going to use the data that you provide, how the database works on an overall general level, and then do a demonstration of the database, including adding programs, enrolling attendees, tracking attendance, tracking staff clearances, and generating reports. So your commitments as a grantee. First off, you are committing to securely register participant information, track program attendance, and track your staff clearances. You're also committing to secure data transmission. That means not sending us sensitive information over email or anything that includes PII, which is personally identifiable information. So also, specifically, we are only asking that you track participants who are funded by us. You don't need to track everybody, just the ones that are sort of receiving funding from the OST office. We will be requiring that grade, address, and gender be attached to names for those participants. This is for confirming DC residency and for data matching so that we can get information from other sources. You'll also be administering a program survey called the SAOY, which will require for those groups that have a minimum of 30 youth who are in 4th grade and above. Given the current situation with virtual learning and virtual programs, this is still a bit in the works for how we're going to get this done. So we'll be sending out information on that later. So for this data, we'll be able to, through that kind of data matching that I've discussed, we'll be able to give you eventually information about how the people in your program are doing in regard to, say, their in-school attendance and other measures that are similar to that. We're going to be using that data to improve and report on citywide and program outcomes. This is also something that is currently in progress. We're a relatively new office and trying to get this up and running. So first off, how comfortable are all of you with using data and spreadsheets? I'm going to open up this poll to all of you. And during this time, if you have questions about what we've gone over so far, go ahead and post them in the chat. We have a question about whether or not these slides will be available, potentially, but the main thing that we're going to be getting out is a user guide for the database, which I will be sharing with you shortly. As to the program surveys being suspended due to COVID, yes, they are currently suspended. We are hoping to eventually get that working so that they can work virtually as well. And we will have more information for you later on that. But they are currently suspended. All right, I'm going to close this poll. Seems like most of you are in the pretty comfortable range with working with data and spreadsheets, and nobody said that they're not at all comfortable, so glad to hear that. So I'm going to jump on ahead to how our database works. So our general structure is we have the organization level, and below the organization, there are different sites attached to that organization. There are programs and participants attached to each site. Participants can be enrolled in various programs at each site, and participants are unique to a particular site. So you can have the same individual across different sites, but for tracking purposes in the database, they are essentially considered separate participants. For deduplication and such, we would hope they have the same name and date of birth, so that we can track duplication later, but you don't need to worry about that generally. Just participants are tied to sites. As part of this data structure, things need to be entered in the correct order. For organization information, I'm going to be creating the organization for you in the database, and then you are going to fill out all of the profile information associated with that organization. I will also be adding sites to your organization. and then you will fill out the profiles for those sites. If you need new sites, contact me. For creating programs and activities at the site locations, that's going to be on you guys. For entering the participants in the database at their site, that's also on you. For enrolling the participants into your program activity, also on you. And for tracking attendance at the program is also on you. Those are your big commitments with the database, and that's what we're going to go over how to do. So for creating new database accounts, for people who can access your data in your organization, or to add site locations, email me. Again, I am Tristan, and my email address is tristan.kirkman@dc.gov. Again, you will enter program information, you will upload participant and attendance information, and these programs are for specific periods of time. If you have one program that recurs year to year to year, we want a new program every year, that kind of thing. And you will also be using this for entering staff information and staff clearances. We also have different options for how to track attendance and how to register participants. There's the easiest and simplest way is to do things in sort of a manual fashion where you can go directly through the database. However, you can also upload data using Excel and uploading Excel files that are within the proper formats, which might be easier if you have a whole lot of students or that kind of things. In the database, you can also generate reports based off of what you've entered so far, which could be useful to you later. So now we're going to get into our database demonstration. And as part of this, we're going to be using our database user guide, which I'm going to link to in the chat right now. This database can also be accessed at learn24.cityspan.com, and there should be a link directly there for the accessing the database user guide. And if you can, we're going to be going through our demonstration, essentially following the database user guide and going down the various steps for each of these. So having it open alongside this is probably a good idea. And if you can, try and access it. And I'm going to put out a poll. Let me know if you can access the database user guide. And this is, again, a time for any kind of questions if you have questions so far. It seems we've got a couple people so far who are saying that they cannot access the database user guide. If you could let me know in the chat who you are, and we can see if we can get that resolved for you. If you can't access the chat, then that would be a larger problem. But in general, going to learn24.cityspan.com will get you to where you can access the database user guide from there. All right, I'm going to give this a few more seconds, and then I'm going to start closing the poll out. All right, closing. Seems like most people were able to access the database user guide. For those of you who can't, email me, let me know somehow, and we'll see if we can get you worked out.
Hey, Tristan, I just got a quick question for you. Does database work better with Google, Safari, or is there a specific platform?
Specific platform for use? Not that I'm aware of at the moment. I generally use Firefox for it, but yeah, I don't know for sure. So far, it's worked pretty well across platforms for me.
All right.
I'd recommend using,
Sorry, say that again.
I would recommend not using Internet Explorer, but that's for
Okay, good. And then I got two more questions for you. So it looks like we don't have an option, a fiscal year 2021 option set up on the site page in Cityspan. Is there an ETA and when that will be available?
over the next couple of weeks, we are expecting to get that set up. It's a bit of a busy time for us at the moment. We're working on it right now.
All right, and then we actually got another question as well that says, apologies if I missed this, but it would be great if we had the materials disseminated ahead of time so we could print them out and or review prior to this run through. And I think the only thing with that is because this is an optional training, and Deborah, Tristan, Kevin, somebody else chime in if you feel free. But this is an optional training, so we don't exactly know who all will be attending in advance, but we can send it out to all the organizations in advance in the future. But we just don't know exactly who will be, which person from each organization will be directly utilizing this information. And rather than sending it out to the masses, we can just we just try to make sure that the people that were on the call had the information. Deborah, Tristan, Kevin.
Yeah, I mean, the database user guide is going to be the big thing for accessing for use of the data. For use of the database, it has almost everything you're going to need to know. Anything else that's not in there, again, that would be a contact us sort of situation.
The only other thing I would say is it's a mandatory training for new grantees and new database users. So we don't necessarily know who is a new database user until later, which is why we can't send it out beforehand, because grant agreements are not yet signed, so we don't have that information.
Right. Okay. I think with that, we can go ahead and get started into working with the database. Now, some of you who are new grantees do not have actual access to the database yet. Again, we're going to be working on that and getting you access to, say, your organization and user account shortly. But we're going to push on ahead and give you a glance at how it works ahead of time. Let me set up my screen again so I can see the chat and such. Oh, and if you have, when you are posting things in chat, I will only be able to see it if you put in, for the two, if you put it to all panelists or myself. I recommend you put in things to all panelists. So here is our login page for Cityspan. This is learn24.cityspan.com. You can see in the lower left, we have a download and link for the database user guide. It looks a little bit like this. And if you can look at this while we're going through this, this should be a very, very easy way to go through. But clicking on Enter System will take you in, and you'll be brought to a page that looks a little bit like this, with an organization profile and your organization ID and such attached to it. This is where you're going to be entering in your organization information, as well as associated information. There will also be on the left a list of site locations. If you click on site locations, it will bring you to a list of things. Included on here are the staff module and virtual site, but we're going to talk about those in a little bit. So we have our three different sites for this individual organization. We're going to click on one of them. And here we're at the site location profile. Now this will also be something that you'll be responsible for filling out in terms of what is available and such. Included in this is for those who already have virtual sites set up and don't need the specific virtual site that's been added. At the bottom, there is a checkbox for, is this a virtual site? And you can check that box if it is. We are hoping to be tracking which programs are happening virtually versus not virtually over the coming fiscal year. We don't particularly care about going backwards through or making that retroactive, but going ahead, we are looking to track which ones are virtual and not. So the first big thing for you guys is going to be entering program information. So we can, from a particular site location, we click on program/camps on the left side. And we have our big list of programs here. These are the programs that are associated with that site. For adding a new program, you just go to the Add Program button in the top right. You add a name and a description. Test program 15. Test. Save and proceed. You can enter multiple dates or a single date, depending on the program. We're going to add multiple dates. We'll add this having begun on, let's say, October 1st, 2020, and we'll end it on December 20th, 2020. And for various days of the week, if this is a regularly scheduled thing, you can start entering information here. If it's less regularly scheduled, then we'll work on that later. But for now, we can say Monday starts at 9 and goes until 10:30, and Thursday starts at 1 and goes until 3. You can add those dates. Next, we get into the details of the program. So we have a primary focus area. You'll need to click on one of these. We'll say this one is academic. You'll need to select a category for the focus area. The program times. This is more general. We'll call this one fall. And we'll call it partial day. For the program finder, which you'll need to enter in which days this was. I think we have Mondays and Thursdays. And we'll call this 9 to 2:30 because we're between those times. Enter in a number of participants. We'll call this 40. Age range of 6, 7, and 8. So grades served, we'll call that 2, 3, 4. You can add whether or not the program is funded by the Learn24 group. And call this a drop-in class. We can check on whatever else we want, reprogram, etc. From there, we click on Save and Proceed. We can choose whether or not to include this in our program finder, which will let other people find it if they wish to. So we'll say yes. And now we have our program added. And that's all we need to do. So I'm going to open up a poll about how comfortable you guys feel about adding programs to sites. Please let me know how you guys are feeling on that. And this is a great time to ask questions as well. So certain organization information being entered by me. Specifically, this is things like your organization name so that you can find it later on and so that you can attach your user account to your organization. Most of the organization profile information will be entered by you all. We also have a question about having site locations be virtual or and unselecting and such. We would prefer that you keep virtual programs on virtual sites and non-virtual programs on non-virtual sites. Just sort of keep a wall of separation between those. It is totally fine if you want to have, if you're having, say, a hybrid program that is on Mondays it's in person and on Tuesdays it's virtual. For this purpose, it would be better to count that as two different programs, one at the in-person site and one at the virtual site. I'm going to go ahead and close this poll in about 15 seconds. You can also edit locations and dates in here if you want to, say, remove a particular holiday or something from your program. And you can do that by going to Edit within the Schedule section. So next we're going to talk about participants and adding people to sites. So by clicking on Participants on the left side, we can get to this page, which will allow us to search for individual participants, create new participants, or view all participants. So we can click on View Used Participants, and it will show us our big list of individuals who are associated with this site. But for now, we're going to talk about creating a new person. So for a new person, what we need is a first name, a last name, a date of birth, and an ID. We'll call this Chris Kirk. Date of birth, they were born yesterday. And for participant upload ID, this is for your purposes, but we have a auto-generate, recommend using it. So when you're uploading data for later on, we're generally going to be using this upload ID for most things, so you don't have to type in their full name and date of birth and such over and over and over again. Just track their IDs, and that's what you'll use. So for here, after we've entered those four things and added these as required, click on Add Youth Participant. And from there, we have a new participant. So we can view that particular record. We can enroll this participant into various programs by clicking on Enrollment and adding an activity. So we can click a service that somebody is enrolled in, and we can add them to the program that we just made by clicking on Enroll at the bottom. And enrolling. We can also add individual participants to programs through the Programs and Camps page. By going back to Programs and Camps, we will find our test program 15. Click on it. And we can go to the Enrollment tab. From here, we can enroll individuals by clicking on Enroll, tracking participants, and we'll click on All just to find all of the people associated with this site. And we'll add in Dane Doe and Ezekiel Doe. Why not? And go to Next Step, and we have our enrollees and their enrollment dates. And then we've got those individuals added. And then we can return and see that we have our negative 79-year-old individual and the rest of them attached to this particular program. There's also ways to do this sort of in a bulk way through the Upload Center, which we might get into more detail later, but for now we're just going over sort of the quick and easy way of doing this on a one-by-one basis. So I'm going to open up a poll about how comfortable you guys feel about enrolling attendees into programs. And this is another good time to ask questions if you like.
Tristan, I have a question for you from an organization. So in the past, I don't believe that we've had our program listed on the program finder since we work directly with our partner schools to enroll students. Can we continue to do it this way, or are we now required to list our program on the program finder?
You don't necessarily have to list your program in the program finder. You must list your program within Cityspan, however. So within Cityspan, you can mark it to not appear on the program finder, but Cityspan is required. Okay. Next, we're going to talk about tracking attendance. So this is pretty simple ahead of time. So we can go to attendance on this particular tab. And for here, we have from here listed the various days. And in this one, by default, it's showing the ones that have occurred in the past, but we haven't filled out any information for yet. However, we can click on all dates, and it will show us our entire date list as needed. So I can say that on Thursday, October 22nd, by clicking on that, I can mark my individuals as present or absent as I wish. And by saving that, and then returning, my 3 individuals who are present for that day have been marked here. Pretty simple and easy from there. So that's how you can do it by day. You can also do that by participant in a similar manner. So let's go to our participants page, look for our participants. And I think we just added Tris Kirk to this program. So Tris Kirk, under enrollment, has test programs 15. I'm gonna click on that. And we can see that these are the dates that are associated with that program for that individual. And we can mark them as present or absent and such from this page as well. And we can save that and return. All right, so I'm gonna open up another poll, how comfortable people feel about tracking attendance so far, and then we'll get into questions because it seems we've got a couple of those. So our question is, for tracking attendance, my understanding is that we need to enter participant attendance on a monthly basis. Is there a date each month by which we need to enter attendance? Ideally, there's a balance here of sort of what's easiest for you and our requirements. As often as you can would be preferable to us. There is not a specific date on each month where you must have everything filled out. You've got some leeway, but we would request at a minimum every month you have your attendance up to date. Okay, looks like people are mostly feeling pretty comfortable with the somewhat comfortables, but we're avoiding those not at all comfortables. So that's a good sign. We're going to close that poll. You can also do this in a more machine readable fashion instead of the manual side. We're going to go to our organization profile, and we can go to upload data on the left side. This will pop open a data upload tool pop-up, which hopefully you guys can see on the page. I can browse for a file, determine whether it's a participant upload or an attendance upload, and then just begin that upload. From here, we have individualized instructions as to how to do this, but the general idea is we have a template for participant information or attendance information. So if you're adding new participants or if you are doing attendance for individual participants, that's generally one row for anything. And once you've filled out that Excel file, which has to be in that particular structure, all the same columns have to be the exact same way as they are in the template. Once those are filled out, you can just upload the Excel file and it will automatically fill in everything that we've been talking about so far. Not going to get into the specifics of this at the moment. Well, let's see if I can share that, what one of those looks like real quick. So, halting my sharing real quick. Finding a template. And we'll share this again. So here we have, say, our attendance template. This has only 4 columns. It has site ID, program ID, participant ID, and the date. So you add the ID number for your site, the ID number for your program, the ID number for your participant, and then the date. And then if you want to add another date for the same participant at the same program at the same site ID, we would just copy that row, put it one down, and then change the date to one more, to the next one. The enrollment template is very similar, except it has information associated with the attendees. So that's where you can also fill out things like grade and gender and ethnicity and that kind of thing attached to a particular site. It will work in very much the same fashion as this. Then you just upload that through the Upload Data Center tool, and it will just fill out the rest of your information from there, which, again, might be nice to do if you guys have a whole lot of participants that you want to do in bulk. All right, get this set up again.
Hey Tristan, just real quick, a question came in. Will these templates be made available?
Yes, they are available easily by, I guess, anybody with a Cityspan account at the moment. So by just going to that upload data, there's more detailed instructions as to how to use that uploading data feature within that section. So you can do that by clicking on the Learn 24 upload instructions, which will get into more detail as to how to use it. And if you have issues or problems, then you can just let me know. Yeah. Their chat box. Open everything. Okay. We have a question about for participants data upload. So when you're adding participants, generally that's going to be new participants. If you add people that already exist in the system, then it will upload the rest of them, but the ones that are already existing, it will say, hey, just so you know, these guys were not uploaded because they already exist. Same thing for attendance. If you upload and there's somebody already listed with that same ID on that same day at that same program at that same site, it'll let you know that, hey, this already exists, so we're not going to double up on it. All right. Next, we are going to start diving into staff clearances and staff information. So staff information is located at a staff module, which is listed under the site locations for your organization. So I can go to site locations, and I have a site location called staff module. Staff module is where we're going to input all of the staff associated with our organization. So again, we have the same kind of feature where you can search by name or ID, but we're just going to click on all to sort of view our staff. And we have all of our wonderful fake test staff listed out here. And we have our create new staff up in the top right. So we're going to create some new staff real quick. We're going to add a first name of Mr. last name Smith and add that program staff. From here, we can fill out other individual aspects of their employment. Status is the big one here. Active ones are the ones that we're going to be caring about. If they're inactive or no longer at your agency or your organization, just mark them inactive. We're also only requiring people that are regularly interacting with children to be listed in here. Those that aren't, you don't have to put them into Cityspan, but if you want to anyway, then just mark them as having no interaction with youth for us. Deborah, can you jump in on here for what else we need for staff people and for who qualifies to get into Cityspan?
Anyone who works with children and youth and is not a one-time visitor to your program should be included as staff, because when a site visit is done and they're present, they're going to need to have their clearances uploaded, and that will be checked on the monitoring visits. So anyone that works with children and youth, including virtually, needs to be listed as staff. Even if they're not paid staff, they can be volunteers and still be listed as staff. Is that what you were looking for, Tristan?
It's exactly what I was looking for. Okay, so now we're going to talk about uploading individual clearances. So we can click on the clearances tab for this for Mr. Smith. And it will give us our list of clearances. Sometimes this loads slow. So we can upload specific clearances like your FBI check or your MPD check and such under specific clearances. So here we have our FBI check here. What we would do is we would upload our completed file, not the application, the actual FBI approved check, enter the date approved, and then click save. Same thing for anything else on this page. If you have an old FBI check, that's say a year old, and then you want to get a new one after another year, then you can keep the old one in there or delete it. But for keeping the old one, you would just click here to add a second federal FBI check, and then you could have 2 of them. Just for fun, though, we're going to go back to somebody who actually has clearances and look at what that looks like. So we're going to click on Mr. Tim Allen, go to his clearances. And this is what it looks like when you have documents uploaded. You can delete them if you wish. They have their date approved tied to these. For DCHR suitability checks, we'd recommend you go to the DCHR tab, put in upload the same thing, enter the date approved, and for this, just mark yes. And that will fill it out as counting for both the FBI, MPD, and NSO checks. Same thing for the DCPS letters if you use those. It's going to be the exact same process of uploading, then marking the date approved, and if it's supposed to count for other things, then mark that as a yes. And there may be some upcoming small changes to this section of the site, so just be aware of that. But for now, that's mostly all you need to do regarding staff clearances. So I'm going to do one more poll on tracking staff clearances and see how comfortable people are dealing with that. And this is another good time for questions if you have them. All right, I'm going to give this a few more seconds and close the poll. Okay, close this. We've got a couple people so far who are not at all comfortable with uploading staff clearances. So for those individuals, I encourage you to reach out to me, and we will do our best to get that sorted out for you. We also have a couple questions for staff who are also DCPS teachers. Deborah, can you chime in on that one?
Absolutely. DCPS letters can go right where actually Tristan has it clicked right there. If you hit that and upload the DCPS letter, it will cover both the FBI, the MPD, and the National Sex Offender Registry. Everyone still needs the CFSA CPR check, which is done independently through your organization. If you need the process for how that is done during COVID, please contact me, and I am happy to send it to you. It is free, but it can take a minimum of 10 days for a new hire. And if it's someone who is resubmitting a check, it can take up to 45 days. So please plan accordingly for those.
All right. Yeah, we have a question specifically about those who don't have a formal letter, but maybe that got answered by your response. Okay. Again, it seems like most of you are feeling pretty comfortable with this. For those of you who are not at all comfortable, again, let me know. We'll see what we can work out to get you through this. And again, the database user guide, which hopefully you guys have up as we're going through this, it's a wonderful tool for getting through this. So the last thing that we're going to talk about briefly is generating reports. we don't require you guys to really do any of this, but let's see, where is it? That one. Moment for this to load. Go back to our grantee sample site. You can go to custom reports. And from here, we can access individualized reports for a particular site. We can get attendance by program or anything, your staff clearances. This isn't anything that we're requiring you to do. This is just for your benefit. If you want to sort of summarize the information that you've put into Cityspan in an easy to read way, then, and you want it to be in, say, Excel and to download it, then you can click on any of these reports and it will give you the information you're looking for. Again, it's strictly for your purposes. If you need to pass that information off to somebody else, that's for you. With that, we have covered just about everything we intended to cover for our database training session. So yeah, gonna open things up to questions now and see how this went.
Yeah, Tristan, we got a question. Does everyone on site have to have clearances if it's a shared site, or just those involved with programming? This might be for Deborah as well.
Yep, I think that's for Deborah.
I'm not exactly sure what you mean by a shared site, but if anyone has access to the youth, then and is programming youth, they should absolutely have clearances. What we also suggest is that if your organization programs in the same space as your administrative offices, even if the administrative personnel, excuse me, don't actually program with the youth, but the youth are familiar with those staff members because they walk in and out of the programming space and everybody's sort of right there. We suggest that those administrative staff also have clearances. Whereas if the administrative staff is on a completely different, in a completely different location, then that would not be necessary. And if that did not answer your question, please let me know.
We also have another question about who to contact to add a site to your organization. That's me. Contact me if you want to add a site to your location, or if you want to add user accounts to have more people be able to access your organization. If you have multiple people in your organization who are handling attendance and such, then we can get that sorted for you. We'll leave things open to questions for a little bit longer. On that, in terms of when your organizations will be added, for those of you who don't have a Cityspan organization yet, or when you're going to get your user accounts set up, those will be in the coming weeks. It's something we're working on. We ask you to just be a little bit patient with us, and we'll get it to you soon.
Tristan, I don't know if you answered this, but should a program contact you if they're looking to add a site?
Yes, they should. They should contact me.
All right, another question. Regarding clearances, this site is a family success center. So parents, Deborah, sorry, I'm gonna start over one more time. Deborah, this is for you though. Regarding clearances, this site is a family success center. So parents will also be receiving services. Do they also need clearances?
We should probably talk offline about that. It would depend on how often the same parents are present. But if they're present on a regular basis with the youth, then I would suggest it's a good idea.
All right, and then sorry, Deborah. Then they just hit a follow up message as well. So follow up to Deborah's response. We are planning to have programming at the Family Success Center, and their parents. There may be parents or other adults receiving programming from the FSC from not from OST. These participants will be in separate rooms, but at the same facility.
That's fine. If they're in separate rooms and they're not, that's absolutely fine. They do not need background checks at that point. You can have multiple programs in one location, and not everyone would need to be background checked just because they're allowed to walk in the same front door.
Looks like our questions are slowing down a little bit. Just to make things sure, if you've got more questions, click yes. If you don't, click no. And if we don't have more questions, then we can get out of here a little bit early. Okay, looks like we've got one person who has another question. Yeah, go ahead and type that in the chat, or if it's something that you can that can wait, or that we can do sort of one-on-one, or just applies to you, then again, just email us or call us, let us know, and we'll do what we can for you. Okay, so we have a question about adding participants from last year to new virtual sites. Again, participants are generally going to be tied to particular sites. You can add them in the same way that you did before. If you want to do sort of a mass transfer sort of thing, then let us know and we'll see what we can do for you. All right, closing this poll out. With that, I think we're done, guys. Hope this was working for you, and you're able to get everything you guys needed. Again, please contact us if you have any trouble or issues with this later on. My name is Tristan Kirkman. My email is tristan.kirkman@dc.gov. I'm going to put that into the chat one more time. And with that, I think we're done. Good luck, everybody. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Tristan.